Hey everyone, my name is Zach REDRUP. This is the It's Not a Phase podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by producer Kris Crummett. Over the years, Kris has worked on many records, working with bands like Sleeping With Sirens, Hail the Sun, Knuckle Puck, Sum 41, and loads more. We talk all about how and why he became a producer, the difference between mixing and mastering, having records that he's worked on go platinum and gold, his advice for any budding producers out there, how bands and artists can go about working with him, and loads more. But before we jump into all of that, for those of you who don't know, this is an independently run podcast run solely by myself, so any help and support that you can give really does go a long way. You can hit subscribe or follow wherever you're checking this out, and that way you also don't miss out on anything new that I put out. You can leave a review or a comment. You can follow the podcast on social media. If you'd like to receive email updates, then you can sign up to the mailing list. And for those of you out there who want to go the extra mile, there's also a Patreon and there's a web store where you can pick up some merch. To make things as easy as possible, I've shoved links in the description box of this episode to everything that I've just mentioned, or you can head to itsnotaphase.co.uk. And now, with all that out of the way, here's my chat with producer Kris Crummett. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining me on this episode of the It's Not a Phase podcast, where I'm joined by producer and engineer Kris Crummett. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Yeah, all good, dude. All good. Yeah, glad that we finally, kind of got our schedules to finally line up so we
Yeah.
could make this thing happen.
Yeah. Took a little bit to figure out when we were both free, but I'm glad we did.
Yeah, that's just different countries, different time zones. That's just it's the way it's gonna happen,
Yeah.
isn't it? So yeah,
Yeah, and I've had an exceptionally busy year with a kind of a just a weird schedule in general, so I know most of it's on me.
well, you're a busy guy, aren't you? You know, loads of different projects that you're working on. And obviously we'll dive into some of them shortly. But I was just thinking, like, just to begin, just for people to kind of get like an understanding of like where you've kind of come from. I just thought we'd start with, I guess, the origin story. So,
Mhm.
what were like the bands and albums that kind of first got you into like the world of alternative music or heavy music or whatever you want to call it?
Um, well, I mean, I was an MTV kid.
Right.
I was born in 82 and my parents had MTV on and like records on the record player like my whole childhood. Like I have super early memories of learning how to change we didn't have a remote, it was like we had the worst old TV, but we had one of those cable boxes that sat on top with the buttons on it. Channel 32 was MTV and that was like 32, I feel like was one of the first numbers I ever learned. So I was watching like, rock music, rap was a little later, but like mostly like rock music and pop music on television.
Yeah.
And then, my parents were really into 60s, 70s, 80s rock. They were into modern music at the time, so we always had records on the record player and the radio was going in the car and my dad's a drummer, my mom plays guitar and piano and stuff. So music was always there. Modern music was always there. I'm not necessarily like a heavy music guy myself.
Okay.
I enjoy working in it. It's cool. Like I think if you like music and understand music, you can translate that to any genre. But I'm definitely like a guitar music guy. Like my bands when I was young were like Nirvana and the whole grunge movement and stuff. It wasn't metal at all, but it was still aggressive rock music. Um, and that's where it all stemmed for me for sure. The heavy stuff more just came with like just the bands I ended up working with when I was younger. You work with a couple heavy bands and they get popular, and then everyone points to you as like the guy who's doing this specific thing, or like one of the guys that's doing this specific thing. So that's more my entry into heavy music. I think like Deftones in the 90s was about as heavy as it got for me.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
but and they're
they
still
still
a
get
band.
pretty
They're
heavy.
still making good records. It's great. They have a new record out now. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah, it's really good. Like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say like, especially compared to like today's standards of what heavy music is, I
Oh,
suppose.
it's
Like,
so
they're
different.
not a heavy band, but they still have like definitely have heavy moments within their
Yeah,
music. And
yeah,
yeah, I guess like a band like Nirvana is just like, I guess it is popular music, but it's gritty and it's got like,
yeah,
yes, some
yeah,
dirt to it, hasn't it?
yeah. And there was no music like the music that's out now. Obviously, there was no music like that when I was younger. Um, there was like hardcore and like older metal, but definitely not like what people call metal today or what people consider heavy music today. No bass drops, no breakdowns like there are today. Um, uh, and that's just music, you know, it's changing all the time. The music that I was into when I was young wasn't around before my era, you know, so it's always changing and it's cool. And I mean, the music that I was working on in 2002 is completely different than the music that was popular in 2002, 2003 is totally different than the music that's popular in the heavy genres now. Very, very different.
Yeah, and then you get like it's like sometimes it's like secular, isn't it? Like you have some bands now that are kind of doing their own take on the whole grunge thing. Like you have a few
Oh,
bands like
absolutely. Yeah. Pop
yeah,
punk came back like huge. That late 90s pop punk movement came back. And now there's a lot of bands that are doing like this um, kind of late 70s punk glam thing
yeah,
again, which is cool. It's really cool. I've worked, I think even in like the last few weeks, I've mastered at least like 20 or 30 songs that are in that kind of like heavily distorted punk genre. And it's not like punk music per se, but it's that punk inspired, noisy kind of four to the floor type of stuff. But it's cool, but it's definitely a throwback. You know what I mean? It's like definitely from that late 70s punk movement.
yeah. It's like a modernization of it, but you can definitely hear
Yeah.
like the influences and the
Yeah.
remnants and like the roots of where that's kind
Yep.
of come from.
Yep. And you're right. There's been a bunch of bands doing the grunge thing, and there's a lot of it's interesting, and there's a lot of bands that like from the 90s and late 90s that I feel like have made full comebacks because they weren't as popular at the time and their popularity grew. And I mean, that happens with bands now. You know, it's like um I just recorded some stuff with a lot like Birds, right? And they stopped playing like 7 or 8 years ago, I think, together. And
Yeah,
now they're like, they have more monthly listeners on Spotify and like more followers than they ever did when they were touring the first time. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes these bands take a break and then the slow build happens, and then you realize, um, get back together and tour again and make more music and take part in the like, circular thing. Um, some of these bands are young enough to get back into it.
yeah,
Well, other people are copying their original moves. So it's
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like there's this British band that broke up like 2007, 2006, something like that, called Her Words Kill, and they like stopped making music then, but all of a sudden they've somehow got viral on TikTok, one of their songs,
Yeah,
and now they've got like they went from in the space of 2 months 3,000 listeners to I think they've got nearly 900,000 monthly listeners now,
that's
which is
awesome. That's
crazy.
incredible.
Like I
Yeah.
don't know how that
TikTok's
works.
done that for a lot of people.
Yeah.
TikTok and songs being in movies and TV shows. And it's really interesting how music can come back around like that. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, I mean, still like kind of looking into the past, I guess. I believe you were in a few bands yourself before you kind of took this like producer and engineer role full time. So I think the Clarity Process and the Crash Engine, is that right?
Yeah, yeah. The both of those were kind of after I was producing music,
Right.
but Clarity Process was a weird one because I just kind of joined. They were like hometown friends,
Okay.
and I had toured but never done like real full US tours and stuff. And they were doing that, and they were like, "Hey, we need another band member." I was playing keyboard in that band, which was super strange because I took piano lessons as a kid and I can play keyboard and stuff, but that's never been my main instrument by any
Right.
means. Um, and it was one of those things where like, hey, we've got multiple months of tours booked. We need another person to go out on the road with us. Um, and we're writing these songs. Come hang out and like if you want to try to be a member of the band, like try to do it. And it just worked and it was really cool. But they already had an album out, and um, I was already producing records. Like I already had multiple label releases out at that point in time.
Right.
But I still had that like thing in my mind that was like I'm a band guy. Like I want to tour, I want to do all that stuff. And now is probably the last time. And it was cool. And I was in the band for about a year and made a record with them and did a bunch of full US tours, which was incredible. Some of the best times of my life. And but the last few months that I was on the road, labels were calling me and they're like, "Hey, we want to book this band with you. Why are you not home? Like, why are you not making records?" And it was like,
Right.
you're on the road not making any money and spending your own money, and then people are offering you thousands of dollars to like still work in music. And that's when that's when I kind of had to make the choice of like, are you going to be a band guy or are you going to be a studio guy? And some people split that their whole career and do a really good job.
Yeah.
Um, my band wasn't popular enough to like to do that, obviously. And just the production thing really was taking off in that time, but fully took off when I decided to just be home full time. And then I kind of got the bug again, and I joined another band, which was the Crash Engine, like 8 years later or something. It was quite a bit later,
Right.
but that was just like a band, a band from Portland that had made a record that I really loved, and they were parting ways with their drummer. And my like a band that I was in before Clarity Process that was more of like one of my real bands called Delivery, um, whose music you can't find anywhere on the internet, but unless our old website's still up or something. But the bass player of that band was the bass player for the Crash Engine at the time, and he was like, "Hey, we need a drummer. Like, you should try out." And I was like, "Man, I haven't played drums in like 4 years,
Right.
but I love the idea of playing shows again." That's such a hard. I don't know if you're a musician, but it's such a hard bug to shake. Um, and I played with those guys for a long time, up until one of them got a really good job and ended up having to move. And at the same time, my wife and I found out that we were pregnant. And so I was going to be like, the production stuff is really demanding. My wife has been super cool about me spending every free moment that I'm not producing music, playing music.
Yeah.
But obviously I can't be in a local band and like give all my time to that and not be around for my kid. So, that was like kind of the final part of it for me. And maybe someday I'll be in a cover band or something when I'm like 50. But that was kind of the final straw of like,
Right.
yeah, I gotta just focus on production and focus on my family and not just. And I mean, I was focused on production. Like I was making, I made a record that's now double platinum when I was in that band. So
Yeah.
it's not like it was taking away from anything, but it was definitely taking what little extra time I had.
Well, yeah, it's just like, I guess, more money and also you're closer to home, right? So that you can be there for your
Yeah.
kid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So do you think if I guess the right opportunity came along, you would want to go back in a band at some point again, or do you think you're kind of over
Probably
that
not.
now?
I think I'm over that at this point. I think the only thing like I'm almost 43. I got another 10 years before I could really dedicate time to a band again. So if I'm like in my 50s, I could more see myself being in some like tribute band where I get to dress up. Like if I got to dress up really ridiculous and play drums, I don't know what it would be, but that would be fun and play covers that like people like. Like I'm at a point where I could never be in a band again where we go and play for people who have either A, never heard our music, or two, don't give a shit about our music.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, or like
Yeah.
10 people. Like that's awesome when you're younger, but for me, especially someone who's experienced like success in music in different ways, like I couldn't do that again and find it fulfilling.
Yeah.
Um, like I totally understand why people do, and it's awesome. I love that people still play original music. Whatever, you could be 80 years old and play original music. That's awesome. But for me, there's just other stuff I'd rather do. But it would be fun to be in like some kind of 80s pop cover band or something where people actually had a good time when they went and I got to play drums and got to dress up. I love Halloween. I like dressing up. So
Right.
that would be a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Just something fun and I guess less committal, I suppose.
Yeah, less committal and also something that like social media can't criticize. That's another part of it for me is like I I I do feel like I kind of have to put on a face with like the music I work with and keep a super or a certain kind of rapport, you know what I mean? It's like I don't know what kind of music my 50-year-old ass would be making that would like stand up to what I'm doing otherwise. You know what I mean? It's like I
Yeah,
don't know. I'm not I don't know. I don't see myself doing that.
I get you. I get you. So, what were the first records that you worked on, like as a producer?
Um, the first like the first stuff I worked on was my own band stuff when I was 13, 14 years old.
Okay,
Um,
started early.
and yeah. I started recording myself when I was 11 or 12. And then moved into like having more tracks and having like their computers weren't really multi-track worthy back then. But I had an ADAT. Well, I had a 4-track cassette player, and then I had an ADAT, which was an 8-track, then two ADATs, which was 16 tracks. So I was recording my own bands, and as I was recording my own band's demos, other bands were hearing them because I was like a younger guy playing with older people a lot of times. Um, and and we were playing out a lot. Like we were playing all around Portland. Even when I was like 14 years old, I used to run into bars right before our set started. Like someone would open up the back door for me and I'd run into the bar and run up on stage and I'd play and I'd be this little kid in the back playing in a 21 plus venue, you know, and we'd have a set just long enough before I got kicked out or caught or never. Sometimes people didn't even care. Um,
Right.
but playing with a lot of older people, other people were hearing our demos and they were like, you know, this sounds better than what we're paying like really full rates for pro studios. And part of it was like the mid 90s, like there was a lot of like mid-level pro studios that just had bad technology from the 80s still.
Right.
Uh, and as I was like a young person keeping up with technology, I was able to like beat those people out. And I was a young person that like didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a family. Like I could make $10 an hour and be so stoked that I was just making music, you know, and even doing stuff for free. So that was kind of my gateway into like producing other bands, was working with bands that we played with or other bands that heard our demos. And then eventually, like a couple of labels heard some of the demos and were talking to our band, but then they were like, "Hey, we have this other band that we want you to record." And there's a band called LKN, which was actually just a single uh, female artist that played everything. And it was kind of like Don Caballero or like math rock stuff. And that
Right.
was one of the first label things I did when I was 18 or 19. And then right after that was Anatomy of a Ghost, Evanescence that came out on Fearless, and then Fear Before the March of Flames that came out on Rise Records and then got bought by Equal Vision. Um, that record got bought by Equal Vision like right after, or maybe before it came out. I honestly don't remember, but that was like 2002, 2003.
Yeah.
And that was like the start of my actual like label working on stuff. And then after that, I just had a lot of records and built a rapport with like Rise Records. Rise was really small at that point. Anatomy of a Ghost and Fear Before were both on Rise before they got bought out by Fearless and Equal Vision. And then I just did a lot of Rise Records and a lot of other, you know, Equal Vision, Fearless, Hopeless stuff after that, and a lot of local bands too. I mean, I worked on some goofy stuff and you know, some studio for hire type stuff as well.
Yeah.
All through that until about like 2006, 2007 is when it really became like full time, all label stuff. At that point.
Right. So I guess well, I think it's in 2002 you got Interlace Audio. That's when you founded that. So
Yeah, that's when I made it official.
right.
When I quit
So
my real job.
right. So I guess you were getting at that point enough interest from
Yeah,
labels or local bands to kind of at least fund you enough for you to be able to do
yeah.
that full time. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big leap. But it worked. And you know, I had like ads in the paper and ads in like local zines and stuff. And it was definitely a studio for hire situation for the first few years, but with label stuff sprinkled in there too. But yeah, I was doing landscaping at that point full time, and then there was I think 2001 and part of 2002 I was working like 80 hours a week doing like studio full time in the evenings and then doing my landscaping job
Wow.
in the
Okay.
morning. Yeah, I would get off at like 3:30 or something and then go right to the studio and work all night and work all weekend and stuff. And then eventually it was just like, maybe I can just do this. And I was so young that the risk was low. Like if it failed, then whatever, I'll like go to college or something.
Yeah. It's
But it
still
didn't. It
like
worked out.
there's still a lot of work though, isn't it? Because like you say, you're balancing basically two
Yep.
full-time jobs,
Oh yeah.
but to try and make the full-time job you actually want fund you
Yeah.
enough to be the only full-time job.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. It was so exhausting. I have like there's all these like I have friends that would be like, "Hey, remember when we saw this movie together?" And I'd be like, I know I went to the theater, but I'm 100% sure that I fell asleep in the first 5 minutes because I was like, you know what I mean? We'd go to like the 10 o'clock showing, but I had to be up at 6 to do the landscaping stuff. And then I was like
Yeah.
working after that. And then I'd be like done and r run to the movie theater. We'd like, yeah, we'd do stuff. And I have like no memories of what
Yeah.
actually was done because I was so tired and, um, fell asleep I fell asleep in like the last two Star Wars movies of the second half of the whatever the Jar Jar Binks series of.
Oh, but the last two, so you've got Phantom Menace, Clone Wars, and Revenge of the
Someone just talked to me.
Sith.
That was
Okay.
thought I was trying to talk to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, those two.
Yeah.
Uh, I believe. Yeah, Phantom Menace was the one I saw, and then because I was younger, and then the other two, yep, absolutely fell asleep. So I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Just running on
Um,
empty, I suppose. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, oh yeah, and I talked shit about those movies forever, and then I realized that I didn't even see most of them because I just fell asleep. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
If you're an 80s kid, you have to love the original Star Wars and not the Phantom Menace era. It's just
Yeah.
it's a rule of the land. But
But I'd argue the prequel trilogy is better than the latest trilogy. So
the oh man, I can't agree with that at all, but
really,
it's all right. Well, which yeah, no,
I'm
I
talking
can't
about
agree.
like Kylo Ren, that that
Yeah,
that,
no, I
that
can't agree with
trilogy.
that at all. But
Oh,
I think that's just a generational thing. I think that's a generational thing. I'm
maybe.
assuming you're younger. I mean, like how old were you when Phantom Menace came out?
What year did it come out? I'm 35 now, so I
Okay,
don't
so
know.
you're 7 years younger than me, 7 or 8 years younger than me. That sounds
Yeah,
about right.
yeah,
Um, because I'm on the back end of the original Star Wars stuff for sure. I mean, I was like 16 or 17 when Phantom Menace came out, and it was just very uncool um, at that
I think it's
time.
mainly Jar Jar Binks. I think kind of
Yeah, Jar Jar
brought it
Binks
down.
is the probably the biggest culprit in that. Um, I should watch him again though. I don't feel that strongly about it.
No,
Um,
to be fair, Phantom
I do
Menace is
think
probably the worst
I
one.
do
So
think Rogue One and Andor are better than anything that other than the first three, personally. Um, Rogue One and Andor definitely like kicked like was way way better than the most recent trilogy. That
see, I love Rogue One, but I've not seen Andor yet. But I've heard great things about it, so I should
yeah,
probably
Andor is
do
the
it.
prequel to Rogue One.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, Andor is the prequel to Rogue One, so it's like the prequel to the prequel. It's awesome. It's really really good.
Yeah, I've got it on my list. But I watched Obi-Wan. That one I thought was
Yeah.
pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah, it was good. Most of the Disney Plus ones have been pretty good. Whether they're
yeah,
like actually good, they're some of them are actually really good. Andor is really good. And I think the first Mandalorian was pretty good. But some of them are just entertaining.
yeah.
There's the one with the kids. I can't even Skeleton Crew or whatever. Uh, I don't think I'd call it good, but it was super entertaining. I don't know if you've watched that one.
I've not
Uh,
watched that either. I've not
yeah,
watched
it's like
the Mandalorian either. I've not seen that.
the Mandalorian's good, but it gets really predictable. Um,
Right.
kind of weird. It's the Mandalorian is like an RPG video game or something. Like
Okay.
every episode, there's like a mission and then they find something, but when they find something, it opens up another mission. It's like it's weird. It's literally just like playing a video game, except
Yeah.
for you're staring at it. But but it's cool. It's fine. I don't know.
Yeah.
like if you've got the time to watch it, it's a good watch, but it's not like must see TV necessarily, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Um,
That's fair. Um, well, I guess before we go like any further, because there'll be people listening who maybe don't quite
don't care about Star
understand.
Wars. Yeah.
Well, not only Star
Oh,
Wars,
sorry.
but they might not know like what what the kind of umbrella of music production entails, right? So you have like a producer, you have a mixing engineer, and you have a mastering engineer.
Yeah.
Can you kind of briefly explain like what each of those components
Yeah,
provides, I
for
guess,
sure.
in a record, and if there's anything else that maybe I've missed that is worth mentioning?
Yeah, so like the producer can wear multiple hats. That word gets kind of tagged on different jobs these days, and it's sometimes genre dependent. Most of the time, a producer is the one overseeing a project, um, making the decisions like along with the band or helping band make decisions. A lot of times these days, they're also the engineer. Um, when you get into like a beat producer or like a pop producer, sometimes they're also the songwriter. It can, but that's usually people who are like a songwriter who are producing the song
Right.
as a songwriter or like a co-writer. There's a lot of different hats that a producer can wear, but ultimately, regardless of the extra things they're doing, the producer's job is always to like, if there's an extra engineer, make sure the engineer is doing the right things and make sure the takes are right and make sure the band is writing the songs, picking the best songs that the band writes, picking the songs apart and helping them shape the songs. Um, Making sure the vocal takes are as cool as possible. That's generally on the producer. The engineer, who sometimes is also the producer, but classically the engineer is the person like running the console or running the computer during the recording process. The person setting up the mics, the person might be making the microphone decisions, or the producer might be, or if they're the same person. But all of that is like for the recording process. Once everything's recorded, the mixing engineer, who sometimes is also the producer and the recording engineer, sometimes are a separate person. That person takes like all the tracks, like you had a microphone for the kick drum, a microphone for the snare, the cymbals, the bass guitar, each guitar. Every vocal take, is a different track. So that person takes all those tracks and adjusts them in a way, adds equalization, compression, um, adjusts the levels and makes it so it's more like the final product. They're usually the ones really bringing up audio quality in the recording. Um, a lot of times, if you heard like a rough mix, which is like what was recorded before it's mixed, things sound pretty small, and most people wouldn't enjoy listening to that. So the mixer brings it from like all the ideas put on a tape into the actually pretty close to the final thing that you hear. And then the mastering engineer's job is generally to even out songs across the board and also to be like the final say in the overall tone of the record.
Right.
Sometimes mixes are so dialed that the mastering engineer is really just like quality control and making sure everything's good, doing the fades, doing the spacing. Sometimes mixes are like cool, but not necessarily going to translate on every speaker. And so in that case, the mastering engineer's job is to make sure that the songs actually translate well and they translate on streaming and to make sure they translate on vinyl and um, all those formats, YouTube, and everything. There's a lot of things a mastering engineer can do, but generally it's like the final process and making sure that everything sounds awesome. And sometimes it's fixing dog shit.
Right.
Sometimes as a mastering engineer, I'll get records that sound like absolute crap, whether they're recorded by the band themselves or recorded by a professional engineer. Sometimes it's wild what you'll receive. And then my job is to, as the mastering engineer, when I'm wearing that hat, is to work a miracle. And
Right.
there's a lot of things I can do to take something that sounds really bad and actually make it very presentable. So there's different levels of like, the amount that I have to dig in when I'm doing mastering, but in general, it's the final process.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that would also kind of go into like the volume across the record, right? Because there's this I won't
Yeah.
mention the band, but there's this EP they've got, and the first song's great, and then you go into the second song, but the volume is just like cranked up so much. So as soon as that first song starts, it's like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, and you're right. And some of that is not necessary. So one of the things that's happening now, even in the last 10 years, but even more in the last 5 or so years, is the whole thing of recording one song at a time, mixing, mastering one song at a time. And that's fine no matter what. But a lot of times bands will just like have one person master one song, someone else master the other song, and someone else masters the other song because different people recorded them. Sometimes the guy recording the third song on the album masters that song himself, and the first song is mastered by someone else. But the bands never let anyone know that all these songs are going to end up on the same release.
Right.
Uh, and I've had that happen a ton of times where they'll be like, "Hey, we released the song that you did," and then I'll look and it's like on a list of like 7 songs, and how am I supposed to set the none of us can match each other's volumes if we don't know the songs are going on the same record. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes a song is recorded and mixed in a way that it can be insanely loud, and written in a way too. Like composition has a lot to do with how loud things can be. But so you have a song that's really loud, and then the rest of your songs can't be that loud, but you already released this song that's really loud, and so they're like, well, just make the rest as loud as you can. Um, and then just ends up really mismatched. But yeah, unfortunately, there's still a lot of bands that care about how the record sounds as a whole, but there are some bands here and there that kind of overlook that and don't really care because they're more focused on the single part of it and not really thinking about the repercussions um, when all those songs are put together if it's not figured out beforehand.
Yeah. I guess that would happen more often than not on like when the initial plan was to just release these songs as singles, and then at some
Yeah.
point later they want to put them in some kind of compilation. I imagine that's when
Yeah.
that happens mostly.
It does, and sometimes the bands just don't communicate that, even if their original plan is, because you'll see a lot of like waterfall releases where it's like the first single comes out, then the second single comes out, but it has the first single on it, and then the third single
Yeah.
comes out and it has the other two. And you're right, sometimes that's not planned for bands and they change course. Sometimes it is planned and they're just not communicating, like even through labels, sometimes like it's just not communicated that a song is not just a single. I have people that send me stuff and they're just like, "Hey, can you do this by 4 p.m. today?" And it's like, "Sure." And then if I ask any questions, I don't get any response, and then I do it, and they're like, "Cool." And then I find out it's like the seventh song on a record. You know what I mean?
Right.
That I
Great.
had nothing to do with the rest of it. It's kind of random sometimes. I would still say like 95% of bands and labels have their shit together in that regard, but some I just don't think realize how much it matters until they've
Hmm.
gone through that once. And then some just are a little bit scatterbrained and don't plan ahead
Yeah. Well,
or just don't communicate it even if they are planning for their release.
yeah. Well, I guess they say like mistake is life's greatest teacher. So you'd hope that if they
Yeah.
fumbled that once, they wouldn't do it
Yeah,
again.
yeah. I've mastered a lot of records or like single waterfall type releases that I only mastered like one song on the previous one, and people were like, "Yeah, we didn't realize how crucial this was," and
Yeah.
stuff. And I have a whole like README file that I send with masters that explains what to do in that situation. And most people, I think, read it, but I do notice that some don't.
Which
But
is helpful.
yeah, yeah, it was like, well, I don't know what to do at that point. I'm like
Yeah.
literally sending you a file that says README. I'm trying to communicate as much as possible, but most of the time everything's cool.
Yeah.
Um, and most of the time, uh, once something like that has happened, whether it's like the band's fault or not, it's not always the band's fault. They're wiser to it, like you said. Um, you know,
Yeah.
learn from their mistakes and then come back to me and or come back to someone else and they're like, let's do this the right way and make sure we communicate it and make sure all the songs are at least in the same realm. It's like you're not always going to have everything match, especially with all the like genre jumping and blending stuff now. Like I listen to big records all the time where like the mixes, and I guess it's always been this way where like mixes don't match at all and masters don't necessarily match, but it is kind of a bare minimum to like not have to reach for the volume and like get totally fucked by it because the next song is insanely loud or like you can't even hear the third song or something, you know. Should there
Yeah, just
should be like a threshold for where everything's kind of close, even if the sonically they don't necessarily match because of the music or the production
yeah,
process. But
just make it less jarring from
yeah,
like
yeah, it
when it goes from
shouldn't
one
be
song to
jarring.
another. Yeah, yeah,
Shouldn't have just like you know, one song blow you away and other ones not. And yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, you've worked with like a lot of bands and artists over the years. So just to name a few, like Sleeping with Sirens, Sum 41, Hail Sun. I think you've worked on almost every Dance Gavin Dance record.
Yeah.
Callous
Yeah.
Daoboys, Knuckle
I
Puck,
yeah. Yeah,
like quite
DGD, I've worked on every record except for one of their live records. I've had some sort of role on
yeah.
one of
I think there was one, is it Acceptance Speech? They came back to you for that one, I think, and then you did like a remaster. I think that's what happened.
them. Yeah. Is it acceptance speech? Yes, it is acceptance speech.
Yeah,
I mastered the original one and then but the I think the process for that one was kind of a learning process for them because it was the first time that they didn't make a record with me and it was their first record with Tillian and you know, it was just kind of a process for them in general, and I don't know if they were ever fully happy with how it came out. And so you're right. At one point, they asked me to remix it, so it wasn't just a remaster; it was actually
right.
like full. I got the files from the original producer and mixed everything again, and um, yeah, remastered it. And it turned
Yeah,
out cool. I thought it turned out really cool. I mean, it was a cool record beforehand. It's a great album, but yeah, that was an interesting one for sure.
yeah. So I guess with so many records under your belt, are there any that you've worked on that you feel like, I don't know, that you're most known for, or that when bands come into the studio, they refer to that as like, I don't know, the a reference point or anything like that?
Um, Honestly, it's really all over the place. Um, you know, it's weird because I've worked on, you know, metalcore records and the like modern like prog type stuff, and pop punk records and like pop records or like indie pop type records. And you'd think that they're all like the heavy bands would reference the heavy records I worked on, and the pop punk bands would reference the like pop records I worked on and stuff. But sometimes it's just very cross like uh you know I've worked with bands, I've worked with pop punk bands that like their reference is Drop Dead Gorgeous, which was like 2006
Very different,
oh,
yeah.
peak uh beginning of metalcore type band, you know, and then I'll have heavy artists reference Ashland or like some obscure thing I did that most people probably don't even know about. um and it's just all over the board. I guess. I mean, honestly, Dance Gavin Dance obviously gets referenced a lot, but not probably not quite as much as people think.
Right.
Uh, because but they're also a band that like there's people who will reference specific Dance Gavin Dance, and it's all over the board. One band will love the first record with Johnny, and then one band will love the you know Happiness with Kurt and Will screaming. Uh,
Yeah.
some bands will only recognize Mothership. You know, it's like they've had so many different sounds. It's all over the place. But yeah, I'm sorry. That's a hard question to ask. But
Yeah.
then like, and my workload now is mostly mastering for the last 5 years or so. Um, so the references I get now are also just like very, very random.
Right.
Like, oh, you know, we loved how that Sum 41 song sounded, or we love how this Newfound Glory song sounds. And then um sometimes I'll get people being like, I love how my buddy's bandmaster turned out, and we know this guy at a label and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, cool. You know, it's just random.
You're right.
Um,
Okay.
People like so. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a better answer.
No,
That question is always hard to answer.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And I'm thinking like in terms of more recent work, I think I saw that you worked on the 20th anniversary of the first Chiodos album. Is that right?
Yeah, I mastered it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you know if that was like a full re-record? Because I saw some
It
reports say like it was a total re-record, some saying it's
is it
just the
out?
vocals.
Is
Yeah,
it
is
out?
that yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, it's a total re-record.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I'm so bad at following
It's so
when
good.
records come out. I work on like 10 records a week, so sometimes and I've been so bad at social media this year. Um, it's been one of the busiest years of my career. But yeah, that's a total full re-record.
Right.
To my knowledge, I wasn't there for it, but
Right. Okay.
I'm pretty sure it was a full re-record and remix.
Yeah. I just
Or
wasn't sure
mix
because
of.
I saw some places say that you were involved. Some places didn't mention who was involved in
Yeah,
it,
I
and
just
then
mastered it,
yeah.
which was cool. It was cool to be involved in that. I'd worked on some stuff with a couple of their band members at different points over the years, but
Right.
never, I don't think ever on a Chiodos thing directly. So that was cool.
Yeah. Is that what's that kind of project like then? Because I guess you're working from an album that already kind of exists 20 years prior, but you're trying to
Yeah,
modernize it, right? So what's and you don't want
yeah.
to
I've worked on
mess it
a,
up too
I've,
much.
yeah, exactly. I've worked on a handful of those, and obviously the production dictates it a lot. Some of them have like gone with really different production styles for the new version. Like the Chiodos one is a pretty different production style, but I think they did a good job of kind of throwing back to that era while cleaning it up quite a bit. And so when I'm looking at it from a mastering perspective, I'm definitely listening to the original version and making sure, like trying to hear what it was that was like magic about it. Because obviously, if you're re-recording an album from 20 years ago, there's some magic to that original album. So
Yeah.
you're walking a thin line because unless yeah, there's really no scenario where first version of the album's not popular, right? Popular enough that you're gonna make a new version to try to um, honor it or sometimes it's just for the sake of royalties. It's like people get in these bad contracts where they have this huge record and they never make any money. So they do the Taylor Swift thing, which people were doing before Taylor Swift, but obviously she made it super famous.
Hmm.
And they're re-recording their songs, so they're getting that streaming revenue. And I don't blame people. Like, you made this record, you should be making money on it. I think it's super
Yeah.
messed up that people get in these situations where they can't make any money. So I don't blame people for going back and re-recording stuff. So when they do though, I want to look at it and be like, hey, what was magic about this? What was it that was like caught people? And it's not always like the cleanest thing, right? Like it's the emotion in it. So if there's anything I can do to bridge the gap between whatever the new version sounds like and what seems special to me about the original version, that's what I'm trying to do in the mastering version. So I actually had the original version pulled up for a lot of the mastering on all those songs, and I was just like, what, messing with the balance of the frequencies and the different things I can do to bring certain instruments up or tuck them, and I was really trying to make sure that we didn't lose what was really cool about the original version, because I think it's important to honor that original version, but also do what could be done to update it. Because I worked on one uh, copacetic from Knuckle Puck.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they just released and that's not a re-recording, but they remixed the original version. And I did that with that one, which I mastered the original version as well. Um, and I didn't remember it sounding bad. I remember it being fine.
Yeah.
And listening to it with my 2025 years or 2024 when I don't remember when I actually did it, but it was like, dang. And Seth, the guy who originally mixed it again. And he was just a lot younger. Seth Henderson, who's super talented. He's really, really, really good. Even was texting me and he's like, man, is like the original version was pretty rough. I hope you really like these new mixes. And it's like, I don't remember the original version being rough. And I listened back to it and I was like, wow, that's a lot thinner than I remembered. And then I listened to his new mixes and I was like, damn, man, like it's pretty incredible that you took what that was, which was like a record when he was young and the band was young, and I'm sure the budget was small. And I don't really know about that stuff. That's just my assumption.
Yeah.
But he took something that they made then and was fine and people loved, but he took it and really turned it into something more modern and that kept up because Knuckle Puck has a lot of great sounding records. That I've had the honor of mastering a bunch of them, but the mixes were like killer. They don't sound great just because of me or something. Like they sound really good because they're well produced and well recorded and well mixed. Um, and he came back with the new copacetic mixes, and I was just like, man, this is amazing. And he gave me references for like what he wanted the master to sound like, and I did my best, and we worked together on it. And I felt like it was a big upgrade. So sometimes it's about honoring the original, and sometimes it's about taking the original when it doesn't get re-recorded, but it's getting remastered or getting remixed and then mastered again. And like saying what can we do to actually like make this better than ever, what can we do to make this super cool. And Copacetic was one of those where it was like we got to redeem this thing that is cool but it never sounded that great. And there's other records that I've worked on that I wish I could do that with, um now with modern technology and just my more experienced ears, stuff that I
Yeah.
worked on 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
um but it's fun. It's cool regardless of if it's a re-recording like Chiodos or if it's just a remix like Dance Gavin Dance or like Acceptance Speech or like Copacetic. And there's some other ones, but I don't think they're out yet, so I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about those ones.
You're on the side of caution for now, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's like say Knuckle Puck, Copacetic, and obviously the Chiodos one, and then Atreyu did one recently, and then Trenton, who was the singer in Hands Like Houses, he's re-recorded their first album. And when I spoke to him about it, he's like, "Oh, we couldn't even do a reissue anyway because they lost all the stems of the first album, so he's had to
Yeah.
re-record the whole thing."
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
um did that come out?
No, he's released it like in a few songs at a time. I
Oh,
think it's going
gotcha.
out next month. Is the full thing
Nice.
coming out? Yeah,
Cool. Cool,
which
cool.
is
Yeah, I think it's a cool thing. I don't think there's any problem with it. I think it's kind of funny because like fans will talk shit about it, but then fans will also talk shit that you didn't make a record that sounds exactly like the record that they loved, that is the record that you're reissuing.
you can't win.
Yeah, you can't win. It's
No.
funny. I mean, you can because most that's not most fans, but I just think it's funny. There's this online discourse about like, you shouldn't remake a record, which I have feelings about sometimes. There's definitely records that I love that don't sound great from my childhood that I don't think I would like as much if they were redone by the older version of the person. But I don't necessarily think the remakes are always even for those original fans either. Like sometimes it's just updating for um, the sake of like the younger generation.
Yeah,
Like if you're looking at a record that came out 20 years ago, there's a whole new set of fans that are out there that might like the record if it feels more like the other records they're listening to now and not like a record that was like, some skate punk record in 99 that was cool because we were all listening to it on crappy stereos outside at a basketball court or, in your mom's car with like a tape cassette that went to a CD player that sounded like absolute trash anyway, so it didn't matter. It's like now we're all living in a hi-fi world where even your phone speaker sounds great. So it's like you
yeah,
can't get away with lower production and expect younger people to be like, "Oh, um, I'm okay with this." You know what I mean? So I think sometimes the updating of records is more geared towards newer fans, and so that part of me is like, yeah, that's fine. I don't have to be the one to listen to it. Other people will listen to it, and sometimes it's just a good thing
yeah.
all around.
Yeah, I guess the original album's still there for people who want to listen to it, and I guess sometimes, like to your point, with like a younger, like fan base, they might not even know that that original album existed. So as soon as it pops up on their Spotify or
Yeah,
Apple Music, like, oh, there's a
yeah,
new album, but it's
yeah.
actually a reworking in one way or another
Yeah.
of an
And
older album.
it also gives bands a reason to tour again on those old songs that people love. It's like a real reason because it's hard to tour if you don't have a release or something coming out. Just playing shows isn't paying for stuff. It's everything together. It's the merch based around the re-release, and all that stuff. And it gives bands an opportunity to play these songs from a long time ago that people loved and sometimes play them all in order, right? And way that they were never played before. And that's that's super cool to me because there's shows I've gone to recently where it's a band I never got to see when I was younger, and I'm seeing them now, and they're playing the songs that they're not playing the new album, they're playing the songs I really liked from 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they're doing that because they have a re-release coming out. and that gives them the opportunity to do that. So I think it's cool. I think the re-release thing opens a lot of doors, and it's really interesting.
Yeah, and not even that. Like, I think 18 Visions did a couple of albums that they just re-recorded it, but they recorded it in a way that because over the years they've changed slightly how they play them live, so it
Yeah,
just
yeah,
better represents how the songs are
yeah.
played live now anyway.
There's some bands that I wish would do that with like where their live show was always way better than their records. Um, but that's cool. I think that's really
Yeah,
neat. I think that's
yeah.
super.
So for people listening who are, I guess, budding and aspiring producers and mixers and master engineers, what, as someone who's got plenty of skin in the game, what would you give in terms of like advice for people starting up? Like, where should they start? How would they go about doing all that?
Well, I think, if you're a musician, recording yourself is a great way to cut your teeth and kind of like understand how your DAW works and understand a lot of the basics. But obviously, recording other people is really important and really different. I think the biggest thing is like working on your craft, whatever it is, whether it's like mixing or recording. Um, and working on it with other bands and not just yourself, but also like getting out there and networking and meeting people. I think a lot of people live online and live in social media these days, and
Yeah,
there was a definitely a time where that worked. There was a time period where you could get online and just like DM people and find clients and stuff. I think we're pretty far past that. I think it's so saturated, the amount of people who are trying to get into recording and find clients, um, versus the amount of people actually playing music. I think that cup is kind of tipped and completely spilled out. So, I think the best way to do it is to go to shows, go to like if you have meetups or um, other ways to meet bands. If you're in a band, talk to people that you're playing shows with, and networking that way, I think, is a really good way to get a leg up. I think the music world still strongly exists in the real world, in the live show aspect. You know, otherwise, there's a pretty big barrier to entry for that. Um, so I think meeting smaller bands and meeting them in person. Otherwise, I don't really know what sets anybody apart if you're just a guy on a laptop and you're DMing people about. I get DM'd all the time because my Instagram is labeled as like a band because I don't think there's like or was for a long time because I don't think
right.
there's an actual like producer or mastering engineer tag. And so I just get these like random spams from people that are like, let me produce a song for you. I love your music. And it's like clearly just some bot bullshit. And they weren't actually looking at my account at all. And like, that doesn't work. Like, we live in a world where spam is so prevalent that spamming people just doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
Nobody wants it. Nobody, you look at something like that and you can detect a spam text, email, DM from a mile away, and nobody's into that. So getting out and networking in the real world and making real connections, like the music business in general, like even if you're just in a band, but especially the production part of the music business is so relationship based. Like a lot of people are going to work with you because they like you. They have so many options. They're not going to work with you because, especially when you're younger and less experienced, like they're definitely not going to work with you because you're like the best or something, for the price. They're going to work with you because they like you.
yeah,
So, making good relationships with people and making sure you're being cool about stuff and not letting people take advantage of you either, obviously. But which happens a lot with bands, unfortunately. But just getting out there and making like real relationships because you never know who knows who and what that's going to lead to. But I think that's super important. And I also think it's important to just do it. There's a lot of people that are like, man, I'm going to do it as soon as I buy this, or like, just as soon as I get this microphone, then I'm going to start really taking this seriously. And it's like, no, if you're going to succeed, like you have to take it seriously and you have to know it's not a 9 to 5 job and it's like something that you just have to focus your entire life and time on until it becomes successful. Like anything, any self-employed type business, like you
yeah,
can't just expect to work normal office hours. Like you have to put everything into it all the time, and you don't have to do that forever, but you definitely have to do it to succeed in the beginning.
Yeah, through like I guess you call it like the struggle years, like just as we
Yeah.
were saying before, like when you were kind of doing the two full-time jobs, right? You were trying to
Yeah.
push it so far that this became the only
Yeah.
full-time job.
And that's kind of what you have to do unless you have an opportunity to just do it without having to work. If you
Yeah,
have an income from something else, that's great too. Um, but that's yeah, that's kind of what you have to do. You have to dedicate
yeah,
your whole life to it. I meet younger people that are like in serious relationships. I've done some mentoring stuff and um, uh, some classes and stuff for college kids. And one of the biggest things that I feel like is, and just knowing people, one of the biggest barriers are people get in relationships with people that expect them to be home when they're home, and like, because their partner is working a job where they're off at 6. So, you got to be off at 6 too. And people will tell me stuff like that. And I'm like, I know what you're talking about. Those relationships are real and they exist. And the other person isn't really wrong for wanting their partner to be around. But like, if you're in a relationship like that, you're going to have a really hard time succeeding in music, whether it's in a band or music production or art or like anything, even your landscaping business or your uh, startup, whatever you're doing, your food cart. You're just like, it's just not going to work if you're in a relationship like that. So I'm
yeah.
not out here trying to break people up or anything, but
No,
that's one of the things I feel like I hear the most, that I'm just like, well, it's hard to hear, but like you have an honest conversation with yourself, have an honest conversation with that person. And if you're like 20, 19, 20 years old, like, in my opinion, focus on your career and do that stuff. You've got plenty of time to fall in love and whatnot.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
And what about bands listening to this right now? If they, like the work that you do and they want to work with you, how would they go about doing that? What would you suggest?
Just email me.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I answer pretty much everybody. I listen to stuff when I can. I try to weed out the stuff like, if you're gonna hit me up and be like, "Hey, listen to my band and maybe we'll work with you in the future," I'm probably not gonna listen to your band. But if you email me and say, "Hey, we've got 3 songs, we need them mastered, uh, by this time, or we just need them mastered. We're interested. What are your rates? What's your turnaround time?" I answer all those emails. All the serious, if the email to me is serious about working together, then I will answer it for sure.
Right,
And DMs. I try to like Instagram. I'm not really on Facebook much, but Instagram DMs
right.
um, are are an easy way to get a hold of me.
So what's the best information for them to include then? Like, I guess, obviously the songs, I guess that they want you to work on
Yeah,
and
or mostly just expressing in a serious way that you want to work together. You know, it doesn't have to be a long email. Honestly, a lot of times the longer the email, the least likely someone actually wants to work together. A lot of times it's an explanation about how they're going to give me some kind of cred for them telling everybody that I worked on their music or something weird like that. But no, just a band. Okay, so a band that wants to work with any producer, or mixing engineer, mastering engineer that wants to reach out, just reach out. Just say, you don't even have to be long-winded about why you want to work with them, but you can reach out and say, hey, something as simple as, we're this band, we want to do this thing, whether it's producing or mixing or whatever, mastering, and this is how many songs, and we just want to know how much you would charge for that.
yeah,
Or if you need more information, you don't have to send a long-winded email. um, there's definitely some producers where you would need to send a little more. Like most of my stuff now is mastering, so as a mastering engineer, I don't have to be as picky about who I work with. When I was producing, I definitely needed demos. I wanted to see like your socials, all that stuff, and I still do. I still take on like 1 or 2 production projects a year, so people interested in that, send a, if you have an EPK or something, send that. Um, but you don't have to send a super long-winded message for sure.
got it.
Just send whatever pertinent information. But mastering engineers will be a little less picky. Producers will be a lot more picky about what they work on because
Yeah.
projects are longer and you can only do so many of those projects in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't really need credit because you've got some records you've worked on that are gone platinum or
Yeah,
they've
yeah.
gone gold. Some great achievements there. Are there any achievements like in your bucket list in your mind that you'd like to reach for next? Like what's next for you in terms of the next step?
Um, I don't really think about stuff in that way, but I mean, just having more having more Billboard charting songs is fun. Having another platinum record would be cool. Actually, again, I don't put a lot of stake into it, but like having a Grammy or something would be nuts. Like that
Yeah.
would be, if I had a Grammy on the shelf, that would be super cool. And I don't expect that to happen with the type of music that I work with and the level of bands that I work with most of the time. Um, but if it happened to be, it'd be very cool. My studio has a Grammy. That's funny.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, but I don't have one. The first time I rented out my studio to another engineer when my daughter was being born, I took like 2 weeks off, and a friend of mine in town um, was looking for a studio to record the band High on Fire,
Right.
and they came in while I was taking time off, and they recorded a record, and they ended up getting a Grammy for like best metal record or something. I forget, but yeah,
Oh,
they
okay.
got a Grammy for that record. So that was recorded at my studio without me. So
Yeah,
studio
bragging
has a Grammy.
rights.
I know. I think it's funny, but
Yeah.
yeah, having a actual Grammy would be super cool.
Yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I think, our kind of music is kind of getting more appreciated, I think. It's I think
Yeah,
a slow kind
it's
of thing.
definitely possible. I mean,
Yeah.
there's best metal record, there's best rock record, there's a lot of stuff in there that um, is possible, but I don't expect it to happen. But I didn't expect a record to ever go platinum, and I didn't expect a band like Dance Gavin Dance to have like multiple Billboard charting, top 20 Billboard charting records and stuff. Like, there's a lot of things that happened that I knew these bands were good, but I didn't expect the level of success to to happen. So
Yeah.
it's cool. I'm happy with how things are, but if anything else like that happens, that'd be cool too.
Yeah. Are there any
Having a
particular
record go diamond would be cool.
that would be cool. That would be cool.
Yeah.
I guess that's the next level up, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
I think there's only like 92 in the history of
Oh,
um,
really?
record. Yeah, something like that. I was looking at it the other day actually, um, because I got a plaque for a month or so ago. Uh, um, if you can't hang from Sleeping with
Oh,
Sirens
yeah.
went double platinum, which was really cool. Or multi-platinum, and I got a plaque for it, and my kids were like, so I was like explaining them to how silver works and gold works and platinum and then double platinum. They're like, what's next? And I was like, well, what's next? I guess diamond, but that's crazy. Like, and in my mind, there weren't that many diamond records, which I think was probably the case when I was younger.
Hmm.
But looking at it now, I looked it up and it was like, I think less than 100, but over 90.
Yeah.
But that's not that many. So
No. I
that
mean,
would
yeah,
be a cool achievement for sure.
there are hundreds of records released every week, so
Yeah.
yeah, it's very small.
Maybe by the time I'm 90, if you can't hang, we'll go diamond. We'll get
Fingers cr-
put a plaque up in the nursing home. We'll
fingers crossed.
yeah, hang it on my wheelchair.
Yeah.
Uh, put it on my grave. I don't know, whatever. But yeah, diamond would be cool. Grammy would be cool.
Yeah. Are there any particular records you've worked on that you're, I guess, particularly proud of, whether that's, either just the general experience of making the record or maybe something you've learned and took from that record going forward?
That's a tough question to answer too, because I'm pretty proud of every record I've worked on. Um, you know, obviously I'm super proud of the Sleeping with Sirens record because it's done so well. And when we were making that record, like when they first showed me If You Can't Hang, they showed it to me like on acoustic guitar in the control room, and it was just Jesse and Kellen. And Kellen was singing it, and even by the pre-chorus, I was like, "Damn, this is a good song." Um, and then the chorus hit, and I was like, "Man, this is gonna be crazy!" Like, I can't wait to hear how the like full band of this really works out. And they were working on it in the live room. Um, a little bit like after hours, and then something happened like at the beginning of that record, two different things happened. Like two people in my life passed away in a really close period of time, and I just kind of like I had to take a day off, and I took a day off, and I had my assistant at the time just get with them and do a live recording of it because it was literally like day two or something, day three. It was crazy, and there was other crazy. Like I had just bought a house, and we had just moved in like 2 or 3 days before they
Right.
got to the studio. The studio wasn't at the house, so there's just a lot going on in my life, and I had to take a day off, and I was like, okay, he's gonna record um, live versions of the song, so we have like real demos and tempos and stuff, and they recorded them that morning, afternoon, and my assistant at the time uploaded them for me like by 2 or 3 in the evening, and I remember like I was so distraught from the loss and the things that happened, um, that I was for some reason I was taking a shower at like 10 at night. I was in a bad place, and I was just like,
Mm.
I don't know. And I put them on, and I put the songs on, and If You Can't Hang, I think it was the second or third one that came up, and I was just listening to the live demo of it, and it was terrible recording, and it was sloppy, and I was just like, this song is so special. Like this song is gonna be huge. And we recorded it, and I was really proud of how it turned out. And before the record came out, there was a point where I was talking to certain people, I don't want to get too detailed, who
Hmm.
were involved in the release, and they were like, yeah, I don't really like this. If you can't, like, the band really likes this song, If You Can't Hang, but I think it's really annoying, and I don't want it to be a single. I want these other songs to be singles. And I remember being like, I it has to be a single. Has to be a single. Like If You Can't Hang absolutely has to be a single. And it would have been whether I argued for it or not. Like the band was also really into it, but like I just couldn't believe that anyone else couldn't see that as like special of a song as I had seen it since the demo, and I knew the band knew it was special. Um, I don't know if any of us knew how special it would be, but
Yeah.
I'm super proud of that though, and I felt like my instincts were right there. Um, and that was important to me. And we spent a lot of time making sure that song was extra cool too. It was a lower budget record. We didn't have every song didn't get the same attention because it just can't when you're in that situation.
Yeah.
But that song and the first song and like Trophy Father and um, a few other songs we really focused on that. But yeah, that one, um, I don't know, it's so tough. Like I was really proud of the two Hail the Sun records that I worked on. Um, and obviously all the Dance Gavin Dance stuff like that. I mean, in reality, probably I'm most proud of the Dance Gavin Dance stuff because, um, those guys were like, I think Matt was like 15 years old, the drummer, when we
Wow.
when we did Downtown Battle Mountain. Like he was so young, maybe 16 or something, but he was so young. And they were all young. They were in like Will's parents' minivan that they drove up. You know what I mean? Like they were
Yeah.
that kind of young, where they were like in their parents' car to come up and make the record, and that record was really special. And I remember hearing the demos and being like, damn, I'm so stoked I'm on this record because it's gonna be really special. Um, and then just seeing them throughout their career and being a part of all those records, almost even to the most recent one, um, it that's coming out like what's the day, the 11th? It comes out tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it comes out tomorrow, and just seeing them through all their changes and being involved in it is really cool, and I'm proud of all the work we've done together and the fact that we strive every time. Like I've never made a record with them where it's just like, all right, we're just gonna pump out another record and get this over with. It's like really important, a lot of attention to detail, and every record we make together, it's like the it's like it's the first record again. Like we're really, really caring about it. Like it's as important as all the others. So I'm super proud of that, especially 11, 12 albums in. Like that's a hard
Yeah.
thing to do. But everyone that's in that band is on the same page about it. So That's really cool. But I'll be honest, there's like hundreds of records that I'm proud of.
Yeah, you've
We
got a
we I
lot.
we
So
put I put so much into all of them, like which is part of why I don't do as much production as I used to. Is like I put all of me into every record, and that as you get older, that gets harder to do consistently all the time. So like I still put all of me into mixes. I still put all of me into to mastering and stuff, but it's not the same like all of you. You know what I mean? It's like very, very different in regards to like how much emotion of your own emotion gets put into stuff and how much gets sucked out and how long it takes to replenish. So um I really am proud of all the records I've worked on. I don't feel like
yeah,
there's a record I've ever worked on where we half-assed it to my memory. Maybe if there
yeah,
was, I blocked it out, but um
yeah,
very proud of all of them.
yeah. As you should be. Like, yeah, you've got so many great records under your belt. So yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, talking about, I guess, like what you're working on now, new music. You mentioned obviously you're working with a lot like Birds at the moment. Um, are there any other projects that you're working on, or can you tell me more about the lot like Bird stuff, or is it all kind of kept under lock and key for
Well, that
now?
bird song comes out really soon too. I'm off the top of my head, I don't remember what day, but it's like tomorrow or next week or something. It's really
Okay.
soon. Um, that song's super cool. Those guys are doing really cool stuff again. All I've got all kinds of great masters that have come out this year and are coming out. It's hard to talk about what's coming out because I just honestly can't remember what has been announced and not announced.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously, I mean, there's new home team. The home team is doing so well right now. Um, there's songs that I mastered for them that just came out, and then obviously Crucible was a really popular record, and
Yeah.
really proud of how that record turned out. And mastering that was really cool. New Honey Revenge. Um, this band called Not Enough Space that I
Oh
ended
yeah.
up mastering a record for them. They're really cool, and that band hit me up about production like 2 or 3 years ago, and I was like really in this space where I just wasn't going to take on younger bands anymore, and but I was bummed, and I remember being like, damn, this band is so cool, and was like messaging people like someone's got to work with this band. This band is really cool, and they've got something going on. And then I just didn't hear from them for a while, and then Thriller hit me up and was like, hey, we've got this band, Not Enough Space. I don't know if you've heard of them. And I was like, yes, that's awesome. They're really cool, and they went you know, they went with some guys that did a really good job on the record, and it's super cool. So I'm glad they got that figured out, and I'm glad I still got to be a part of it. But I got that Newfound Glory 100%. That was really cool. Um, New Bearings, new. Oh, there's so many bands I'm gonna forget. Some Bayside stuff. There's a lot of good stuff.
A lot
I
of
wish
stuff.
I should have planned a little better and had that written down.
It's all good.
Um, but yeah, there's a lot of great stuff coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Chris, I've kept you for a little over an hour now, so yeah, we'll wrap this up. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming on. Really appreciate
yeah,
it.
thanks for having me.
Um, any final words, anything you want to say or plug before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your day?
No,
No?
no, just follow me on Instagram at KCRUMMETT. Um, if you can find me on Facebook, find me on Facebook. Um, and that's about really all the only places I exist online anymore. But follow me there and keep up. And if you want to message me about stuff, message me. Even if you're not in a band, I usually answer questions when I have time. I'm always happy to chat with people about music and stuff. So, um, hit me up. I'm around.
Awesome. Thanks again, Chris. Yeah, keep in touch and best of luck with everything. And yeah, hopefully speak soon.
Yeah. Take care, man. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me
you
on.
too. See you later. And that's it. Thanks so much for tuning in to It's Not a Phase. If you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Leave a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube. Follow the podcast on social media, and maybe even join the Patreon or grab some merch from the store. You can find everything that you need at itsnotaphase.co.uk. That's itsnotaphase.co.uk. Thanks again, Hopefully catch you on the next one, and remember, it's not a phase, it's a lifestyle.